I learned about the importance of getting people engaged is that people need to see results. People are feeling so powerless these days. When I was doing community organizing, I'd go and knock on doors trying to find issues I could organize people around. And I'd knock on the door and say, are there any problems in the neighborhood? And they'd say, why? You can't fight City Hall. Or I'd knock on the door and say, are there any problems in the neighborhood? They'd say, why, are you a lawyer? And the implication was that only lawyers and politicians have any power in our society, which is a pretty sad indictment of a democracy. So we try to give people a sense that by banding together through collective action, they could make change. So we didn't start with world peace, because it's kind of hard to see results. Or climate change, it's hard to see results. Doesn't mean we shouldn't work on the big issues, but people are never going to work on the big stuff if they don't think they even have power to make change on their own street. So the idea, this is Saul Alinsky's concept, but you start with small issues or small projects where people can see that their participation makes a difference. And once people get a sense of the connection between their engagement and results, then they're more likely to work on the bigger stuff. But they aren't going to start there. And then the fourth lesson I learned is don't sit on your assets. Okay? And the point here is that absolutely everybody in our community, absolutely everybody has gifts to give to our community. Absolutely everybody. We like to think of them as three kinds of gifts. Gifts of the head, that person's knowledge. Gifts of the heart, that person's passions. Gifts of the hands, that person's skills. Absolutely everybody's got these. But unfortunately, as we talked about earlier, we're increasingly putting labels on most of our population that labels them not by their gifts, but by what they're missing. So we use terms like homeless, unemployed, poor person, non-English speaking, single parent, addict, offender, old person, young person, disabled, to identify people. And as somebody said, there's some value in those labels. There's some truth to those labels. But it's only part of the truth. And we just focus on what people are missing, then they just become clients in the service system. And we focus on people's gifts, they become citizens in our community. Who was it who talked before about the meaning of community? Yeah, you did, yeah. That it's about the exchange of gifts. That's the meaning of community. That you're meeting everybody's needs with everybody's gifts. Everybody's got needs, everybody's got gifts. And if you just focus on people's needs and don't recognize their gifts, you've defined them out of your community. And then we wonder why all these individuals aren't active in our community. We've defined them out. They're part of a service system, not part of a community. Does that make sense? And it's really powerful to lift that label off and focus on their gifts, because that's the basis for community. Got a friend who's a minister in a church in Ohio. And the members of his church operate a soup kitchen in the basement for homeless men. And finally one of the members of the church got this idea and says, why don't we interview these men, find out what their gifts are. Turns out a bunch of the men like to cook. They said, would you like to help cook the meals in the soup kitchen? They were so excited. Nobody ever thought to ask them that before. And after a while, the homeless man and the members of the church are cooking and eating together. It was kind of hard to tell who were the providers and who were the clients. Because it wasn't about services anymore. It's about community. About recognizing everybody's got needs and everybody's got gifts. You all know the story of stone soup, right? Well, okay, here's a quick version. It was after the war. Soldiers are coming through the countryside and they're really hungry. And they get to this little village and they ask the villagers, do you have some food you can spare? And the villagers say, sorry, we don't have anything because they've hoarded what little they have. And the soldiers say, that's okay, we've got a magic stone. And if somebody will lend us a kettle, we'll make stone soup. So a villager brings a kettle, they put the stone in, they add water, they put it on the fire. Soup's going to be fantastic. But you know, it'd be even better if somebody had a few herbs. So somebody brought a few herbs. It'd be even better if somebody had a leek. And somebody brought a few scraps of meat. And every villager brought a little something. And when that soup was done, it was the most delicious soup people had ever had. And they marveled at the magic of that stone. Yeah, but of course the moral of the story is the magic wasn't in the stone, the magic's in community. That's the meaning of community. Right? Everybody's got needs and everybody's got gifts. And it's about meeting each other's needs with each other's gifts. And that no one person has all the gifts we need to build community, but collectively we've got everything we need. It's a program we put together in Seattle called Involving All Neighbors. We wanted to help associations think about how they could be strongest if they're the most inclusive. And Matt and his mom came to see me, and Matt says, I've been living here in the Ravenna neighborhood for 8 years, and I don't know anybody. I'm totally alone. I said, Matt, what do you like about your neighborhood? And he took me to Ravenna Creek. He says, I love the creek. And I knew the neighborhood was working hard to clean up that creek to make a better salmon habitat. So I talked to Thomas. He was the president of the association. I said, Thomas, could you involve Matt in your project? He said, yeah, we can always use more volunteers. So they trained Matt how to remove the invasive plants and how to reforest with native plants. And it wasn't long before he became the volunteer leader. And he was teaching everybody else how to remove the invasive holly and how to reforest with native plants. But Matt's greatest gift, he's got this incredibly infectious personality. He knocks on your door and says, hi, I'm Matt. I really care about salmon, don't you?
Yeah.
You'll help me, won't you? Yeah. You can't say no to the guy. He is the #1 volunteer recruiter in the neighborhood. That's his gift. He builds community like nobody else. And he's so creative. At Christmas time, he organizes a holly day party. And all the neighbors go and collect the invasive holly from along the creek, and they make Christmas decorations, and they all come back to his house afterwards for a big party. And he's totally socially uninhibited. He's always the first one out on the dance floor. He helps everybody else break out of their shells. That's his gift. One more here. This is Larry. Larry, as you can see, has a disability that makes him totally dependent on public transit. So Larry knows the bus system better than anybody else in his Capitol Hill neighborhood. He knows all the places the bus goes. He knows all the places the bus should go. It doesn't go. He knows all the places where there should be covered bus shelters, where there should be better security lighting. So when the neighborhood did their neighborhood plan, they tapped Larry to help with the transportation element. And Larry led a walking tour, pointing out all the access problems in the neighborhood. Because they weren't just a problem for him, they were a problem for elders with their walkers and parents with their strollers. Larry became so highly valued that he was elected vice chair of the Capitol Hill Community Council. Somebody with developmental disabilities, somebody who's been seen as a person with nothing but problems, nothing but needs, is now a leader in his community because people thought to lift off that label and focus on his gifts. So I think that's a huge part of the resources we're missing out in our communities. And I know, Barnwood is very focused on people with disabilities, on mental health, I think. What else? But just think of all the other people who've been labeled. If we can just reach out to all these labeled people. Poor person, non-English speaking. We identify people by the one language they don't know. Just think how useful they could be in our community building efforts. They often know multiple languages. Right? Young person, God. We never talk about young people in my country anymore without the adjective at risk. Who's got more energy than young people? Talking about this. More creativity. Who's got more at stake in the future of our community than young people? And who are the experts on young people more than young people? When we sit around and talk about the youth problem. The problem is we aren't engaging young people in our work. The fifth lesson I learned about getting people engaged is the importance of leading by stepping back, about having a new style of leadership. How many people do you know who've been leaders in their community groups for years, decades, right? And they're always complaining, I have to do all the work, nobody else will help me. And they're getting really burned out. Right? And I think the problem oftentimes is they don't make room for anybody else. Nobody else wants to do the work the way they're doing it, where they're doing it 24/7. So it's about how do you break that leadership role into much smaller pieces. That recognizing, again, no one has all the gifts. But collectively, we've got everything we need. So somebody may be a good facilitator. Somebody else may be a good speaker. Somebody else may make a great pie that would get people to come. Somebody else might be a good welcomer. And you need all those roles to have effective leadership. And if you can divide the leadership role into small pieces, people are going to much more likely to step up than if you tell people this has to be their full-time volunteer work, right? And then people will grow into that work. You start small. I was trained as a community organizer. The iron rule of community organizing is never do for people what they can do for themselves. It's the hardest rule for all of us to learn because we're all doing this because we care deeply about our communities. But often in our desire to help community, we're taking away their own agency. We're speaking for the community, doing for the community, trying to help the community, but we've left no role for the community. So my first week on the job, I was a volunteer as a community organizer. I met with my mentor the first week, and he said, "Jim, tell me what you did not do this week." I said, "What do you mean what I didn't do? I worked so damn hard. I was working day and night, weekends. I did everything." He says, "That's the problem. Your job isn't to do for the community. Your job is to build the capacity of community to do for themselves, to speak for themselves, have their own voice. So every week I want you to come and tell me one more thing you did not do." It's hard. It's hard. Remember the first week I was organizing, and early on, the first group I organized, they went and made their demands on City Hall. These guys had never been in City Hall before. They were so nervous. And the leader of the group picked up the microphone and put it in his ear and started talking. He was just so nervous. And I wanted to get up and bail that guy out and speak for him. Right? Or they talked to the media and they were kind of blowing it. You know, they were kind of getting off message. And I wanted to jump in and give the talk for them because I knew I could do a better job. But if I'd done that, I would have reinforced the sense that they had absolutely no power. That they were dependent on a professional. Tom Peters said, "Leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders." And I love this one. When the best leaders' work is done, the people will say, "We did it ourselves." If it's one person's work, it's not community. And you really haven't done much. And then 6, celebrate success, recognize caring neighbors. Sometimes we get so caught up in just jumping from project to project, we don't step back and really celebrate what we've accomplished. We don't recognize the people who made it possible. People claim they don't like to be recognized. People are humble, but people really love it. They like to be recognized for what they do. And to show, highlight that, take time to celebrate it. As I said, celebrations are fun, gets people engaged. But also it's a way to start sharing those stories. To celebrate what people are doing, and it helps inspire other people to action.